This is Digital Tools for Architects, Photoshop 1.3 tutorial. This is adjusting curves in a particular image. And curves are kind of a difficult thing to conceptually understand until you play around with it. And so what we're going to do in this image is try to give you an idea of what can be done with curves. And it's more or less appropriate depending on which image you're actually working with. And so in this image, we're going to give it a shot and see how it turns out. It should make some subtle enhancements. And we're going to use it just like we've done in Photoshop 1.1 and 1.2. We're going to use an adjustment layer. So I'm going to come up to Layer, and I'm going to go to New Adjustment Layer, and this time I'm going to select Curves as my adjustment layer. And so we'll leave it named Curves 1, which works out just fine for what we're trying to do today. I'll know that this is my curves adjustment, and you'll see that the curves dialog box comes up. Now, the important thing to understand is that we're seeing the histogram on the back of the image that's here, but furthermore, we're seeing the value from black to white, white being up at this corner. So it's kind of like a histogram that's turned on its side from the levels adjustment 1.2 that we did. And this one's a little bit different. And what it's going to do is it's going to allow us to change the relative darks in the image to be a little bit lighter, or a little bit darker, and the relative lights in this image to be a little bit lighter or a little bit darker. And so what I'm going to do right now is what's considered to be a traditional S-curve for this particular image. And so I'll show it to you. What I'll do is I'll click on this diagonal line here right in the center. And I like to do that. Is it truly necessary? No. But I like to pin that center point so the midtones of my image aren't going to change. And then what I'm going to do is I'll set a point right here, and I'll also set a point right here. Now with one of these points selected, and so let's select this upper point, I'm going to use the up arrow on the keyboard to bring this up just a bit, something like that. Okay. Likewise, I'll come here and I'll bring this down just a little bit, and I like to use the keyboard arrows to have a little bit finer control over what's happening in my particular image. You may or may not want to use the keyboards. You can of course drag this and move this, and you can see that we can actually really distort the quality of this image a great deal if we adjust these curves beyond. So this is really designed to be a very subtle adjustment, and what we're looking for is a little bit of an S-shaped curve, and you have to kind of turn your head on a side to see it as an S, but it is an S right there. And if we turn on and turn off the layer, remember once we do this adjustment we don't have to click OK or anything, it's just committed in our adjustment layer. And if we turn off the image, you can see what it was originally, and we can turn it on with curves, and you see that we brought out a lot more of the color depth in this particular image. So it's helping out quite a bit in this image. It's definitely worth trying out in one of your own images to see how it will work out with one of your own images. If I wanted to go back in and edit the curves again, all I have to do is click on or double click on this little layer thumbnail here, and it'll bring back up the properties dialog box, which lets me adjust the curves once again. So it's very easy to adjust these sorts of things. The other thing that I might do if I were continuing on this track is I might also stack up a levels adjustment, which is Photoshop 1.2, to further enhance this particular image. So that's it. This is Photoshop 1.3, adjusting curves.